Hey, this is Jack Downs with a little tutorial on a lower thirds exercise to explore lower thirds and some additional features in Premiere. And I have, as your assignment will explain, downloaded transitions 1, 2, and 5, those files, into my my folder on my desktop or my download folder in a lab. And that's maybe why my screen looks a little different than sometimes, because I'm actually working in the lab, because this is slightly more intensive work. And I've made a new project, and I placed those files in here, and it explains that you go ahead and just put them on the timeline in that order. So there's number. Actually, because they were all selected at once, they went in the wrong order. Oh well, who cares? That's actually the last one. This one is the first one, I believe. And then, yes, and that's the number 2 and number 3 in order. I can check by putting my scrubber in each one. Good. Turn my sound down a lot. I don't care for the sound here. Sound isn't important. Remember, the lower thirds is the text in the lower 1/3 of the screen that gives some information, identification, direction, or something like that. And we're going to start with the first one right here, which you recognize who that is. There we go. And I'm going to also zoom a little bit in on these guys here like that so we can see a little better. And I'm going to make my lower third appear about a second in or so. This is a pretty short clip, so we don't have that much space. And as is explained in the instructions, go to the Captions and Graphics workspace, which then gives you access to these tools. There's other places you could have got them to, but anyway. And we're going to go ahead and use the rectangle tool. If you ever look at this and it doesn't show the rectangle tool, it could show some of the other tools underneath it, but we're going to use the rectangle tool. I want you to draw, oh, it says first, I'm sorry, there's a first part of the instructions. It says to go to this wrench and choose settings and choose safe margins. I think in your handout I say something like safe zones. It's safe margins. I think it used to be called safe zones. But anyway, this shows us, it gives us some lines that kind of give us an indication about where, help us line text up and how we shouldn't have text too close to the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and drag, as I said, this rectangle tool. I'm going to drag it from this side somewhere over to this side somewhere. And I'm going to have it sit on that bottom margin line, something like that. And now let's say it didn't really fill up the whole area. Who cares? I'm just going to make it fill up the whole area. Afterwards, I can fine tune it a little bit, make sure it goes at least to the edges, okay? At least to the edges of the screen. Notice that I have a little bit of space below here, and that's intentional. So it says fill color, something dark that matches the sense of the frame. So I click on the fill here. See that automatically when I use the rectangle tool, I should have gone to the edit. If it ever doesn't happen automatically, make sure you're in the correct workspace and then click on edit. And you'll get this option to click on fill. And I can look at the screen at the same time and think, what color is going to work well here? I don't think red would work that great, but maybe a blue would. So I'm going to click into the blue area a little bit, maybe a darker blue. And we definitely do want things to be kind of dark here because we're going to have white text, right? So maybe something like this. This is kind of a nice blue here. Okay, we'll say okay. Fill the color like that, something that's complementary, doesn't distract that much. We're going to also, someplace in here, it says reduce the opacity of this color bar. So I'm right here, I might as well do it right now. Here's the opacity since I have that fill selected. And I will go ahead and bring it down to something around 90, 85, 90, something like that. So I can see it's there, but still see through it. Now I'm going to get some text. Type 2 lines of text in the bold sans serif font, probably all caps, font size, so on and so forth, as your instructions say. I put on caps lock, go to my text, I'm going to type in here. And it's not going to be in the right place, but that's okay. Jess Landman. And the second line, likes tacos. Okay, and I'm going to select it all, and I'm going to go to scroll down in my area here and choose bold. And you could choose Tacoma is fine, Franklin Gothic is fine, Arial is fine, any of those fonts. I also want to make the second line much smaller. The first line actually is about 100. The second line I'm going to bring it down to like No, not 1. Where? I'll put a number in there, like let's say 60. I think that would be nice. So we have the description and then the words afterwards, and we'll go back to our selection tool and move that where we think it should go. It's going to go within the blue line, and now I see my blue line needs to be made a little bigger. And I'll bring it up a little higher, and I'll click on it. Let's say I want to move that text. How do I get to that? Okay. If I scroll up in this area, notice I have 2 layers here now. I have the shape, which is the fill, and then I have the text. I can click on the text here to select it. Let's say I want to move it a little bit. If I just use the up or down arrow button, it's not going to work right. I have to use Control and the arrow button. And then I can move it a little bit. I'm going to move it there a little bit. And I can click off to see it better. And I think that's okay. If those rules were getting in your way and you're having trouble seeing it, you could remove them briefly and then bring them back again. So we've got a nice little item here, which has got 2 layers, and it's got text and a transparent border, and that would be a very nice lower third. Of course, I'm probably going to add and you should add a default transition to the beginning, which is a cross dissolve, and a default transition to the end, which is a cross dissolve. We can use the defaults here because there's no audio selected with it that we have to worry about also. And if we play it through, it's going to look something like this.
If I could only eat one food,
just fades in, and it lasts for a few seconds, and then it fades out. Good. And there's nothing wrong with that one. Now we can do something more to it. But as we're going to, it says on the timeline, select your lower thirds with a copy and do a copy C. So I'm going to zoom back a little bit more like that. I'm going to select this guy here and do a Control C to copy. I'm going to put my cursor down here a little bit. Now I've noticed in doing this sometimes it kind of screws up where it wants to paste sometimes. And so I tend to go down below here, put my cursor down here, and then paste. And then I'm going to move it where I want it. Otherwise, it kind of jumps on top of things and actually kind of slices them up. Sometimes I have to go bring them in again or push them together or stuff. So I suggest you do that. So this is what I do. I just copied that into all that work we did, which is great. I'm going to go, this ends at 8 seconds. I'm going to go about here, which is about 9, a little more than 9 seconds. And that's where I'm going to make this one begin. So I'm going to be doing a transition for him. Now, this, of course, is not the correct information. But that's okay, because I've just saved myself so much work by copying and pasting it. So it says, and by the way, I have a note about the clip and displacing it and so on here that you can read about that. I pasted it. Oh, it suggests I pasted it a second time too. That's right. I'm going to kind of use this twice. In a way, I'm going to go down here and paste it again. Okay, I'm going to bring it along here, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to bring it up to this level here. I've got it duplicated here. Why the heck did I do that? Okay, put one on top of the other. Select the bottom version and delete the text layer. I'm in the bottom version. I can take the text layer and delete it. Now let me put my cursor on top here so we can see what's happening. Right now, they're doubled up, and you don't see much at all. But if I select the bottom one and delete the text layer, just hit the delete key. And if I select the top one and delete the fill layer, just hit delete. Now it looks the same, but what I have is text on one and color on the other. Okay, that was the whole point of that thing. Select the bottom version, delete the text layer. Yes, I did. Okay, good. And then so on. All right. Now we're going to add with the text layer selected. There it is. Now I can get to this text. I'm going to write Kirk East Chicken Shaft. And it's supposed to say chicken shaft. Sure, whatever. All right. So I'm still in the captions and graphics workspace. Yes, I'm going to click on the lower third, the lower one, so I can get to the color. Click on the color. Now I want to create a gradient here. I want to change between 2 colors. And here's how we can do it. If we click on the fill area again, but this time not solid, but linear gradient. Now I can choose a color for the beginning stop and a color for the end stop. I'll make the beginning stop something like this. I'm still going to keep them relatively dark. That red color. I'm going to make the ending stop something like the bluish color we used last time, roughly. And I can change the position of these, which is the midpoint, so make it more red or more blue. I can do other things to it also. You can learn more about this if you wish, but that's good enough. I made a gradient between the two. Okay, good. So I did that. Now it's time to make the text layer move. Okay, we're going to use transitions to make this move. We're going to do a slide on the left and a push on the right. So if I go back to actually, if I go to effects, this will do it, right? I'm having some trouble with my cursor. Hold on just a moment. Gotta move something else out of the way. Okay. So I've got these two guys here, right? I'm going to have this time just the text move. Remember, the text is the top one, right? So I'm going to go to Video Transitions. I'm going to go to a slide and do a slide on the left side of it. And I'm going to go to a push and do a push on the right side of it. And let's see what happens. Here it goes. Let's play it, and we're going to make a little more space here. And I'm going to play it now.
I could only eat one food. I think
Slides,
it would be chicken because
and
you
it
have a wide variety of things you can do with
slides
chicken,
out.
like fried.
Okay,
you can
good.
do chicken parmesan.
So
you can
it's
do
when we move it
so
off,
much, so
in from
I
the
would
left
pick
is a
chicken.
slide, out from the right is a push. Okay, good. So now we did the push and so on. Good. Now we're on to part 3. Part 3, we could start with more that same. We could copy and paste again, or we could just start from scratch. I think I'm just going to start from scratch here. The idea is, and maybe I'll just go grab the text, since I like that. I like the way I had that text formatted. I'll do the same thing. So I'm going to go back here a little bit. I'm going to scroll up a little bit, make a little more space. Grab that text. I'm going to copy it. Move my cursor down here. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to go stick that up on top. Again, I'm going to just go in from about 21 seconds to about 22 something. Good. About a second in. I think 2 seconds is a little better, but these are very short clips. And you notice that my items that I'm doing, that I'm making, have a duration of. Whoops, how come that didn't come up? Speed duration of about 5 seconds, which is fine. So they're 5-second items. Okay, this is going to be the text. We're going to edit the text here, right? Make my cursor go there, and I can just click right in here. I don't even have to go to the other workspace if I don't want to. And this is now Natalie St. Dennis. That's a period. Okay, period. And the next line is admires sloths. Okay, I'm going to grab this stuff, so I might as well go to Captions and Graphics and quickly get to my selection cursor and just yank it up here a little bit out of the way. All right, so I want to make a piece of color, a color rectangle that's going to go all around this thing. So of course I just go grab a rectangle, and again, we've done this before, I just drag and drop it. It's just going to use whatever color I used last, and of course it doesn't have any opacity applied to it though. I guess that color would be okay, but I could change the color also. I'm going to bring the opacity down to about 90, a little less, right? Now notice that my text looks obscured, and that's because of the order of these things, the order of these layers here. So I'm going to take my shape layer and have it below my text layer. My text layer is on top. Also notice that I think I've got things a little bit too big here. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. I'm going to close this up layer a little bit. I'm also going to go to my text layer and select it and use my little control and arrows to reposition a little bit. Okay, and I kind of like that. All right, so we're just going to do that? No, let's just use a little bit of an accent color for this one. If I select this whole thing, an easy way to do it is to click in here and do Control A to select both layers at once, or do click and then Control click or whatever. And I use my up Control and up arrow. I can slide the whole thing at once. If I want to make like a little color bar beneath this thing, well, I could just draw it. I like the idea of duplicating this to show you can duplicate it. If I select a layer and do a right click, duplicate, I get with another layer. I'll bring this one down below. I can name these layers. I could call this accent. Whoops, that's not right. Okay, that's better. All right, so what happened? If I just clicked accent and use my little down arrow, it's going to just bring that little layer down. It's exactly the same size and shape, but I could go to the fill on that one and I could change it to, let's say, a yellow. Kind of a brightish yellow, even. I'll say OK. So I could have a little yellow bar below my other thing. And I could actually just bring this down to about, I'm going to put it to about there. I'm going to actually change my other guy now. Select on that layer, and I'm going to close this up a little bit, just to the yellow. There you go. That's all I did. I got 2 periods in there. I'm going to go to the text. Go to the text. There we go. Okay. So I just made a little color box with a opacity reduced and a little bit of text here. Now let's say you wanted to get in close to see that better, right? Let's say you want to get some detail work here, change things around, make everything a little smaller, bring it a little over to the corner and so on. You want to get closer to see what you're doing. Notice I could go from fit and go to like 75%. Which then would allow me to use the hand tool and go in and really fine tune it and get up close. Maybe it'd be more like 25%. Or you'd have to change, depending on your monitor. My monitor is not great for this, the size-wise and the proportions, but so you get really close, and when you get done, you can go back to fit. So you can zoom in with that tool and with the hand tool to go find what you want there. You do the highlight color, right? Good. Yes. Okay. Now let's add some movement. This time, though, we're going to add movement using keyframes. So still with this guy selected here on the timeline, I could go to Effect Controls, and notice that I have motion as one of the choices here. I'm going to scroll down so I can see it well. So what I want to do is I want to create a keyframe. We're actually going to have 4 keyframes. We have a starting position, a middle position. That middle position will repeat, and then we'll go down to an ending position with the keyframes. And we're going to create the movement, kind of manually create the movement. We're going to go out and back in again. So we have to create the starting position here with our cursor at the very beginning of this thing. I'll put my cursor right at the very beginning here, right? Which is also at the beginning here. I could have controlled it here also, the same way. All right. I'm going to make a starting position by hovering over this left position, which is the left-right position. Oops. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. I don't want the You know what I don't want? Oh, I got my slides on there still. I don't want the slides. Clear the transition. Clear the transition. Yeah, that's right. I don't want the slides on there. Okay. And select. Okay, good. Here we go. So I'm going to move it all the way off by just sliding, sliding, sliding. Continue to slide. You may have to go back a number of times, move your mouse around. You could put a number in there. What's the number going to be? It's going to be, we'll find out here in a minute, minus 300 essentially, right? That's my starting position. Now I click my position, right? Yes. Good. Now I'm going to set a position someplace along here after about a second. So we're going from about there, which is about 22 to 23 something. A second in, it's going to zoom in. Yeah, that's pretty fast. We'll see how it goes. That could be okay. So now I'm going to change the position again. This time I just change it. Remember where the number had been at before? Oh, I don't remember. You could remember. It's going to go about out to there, which is about 950, 960. I think it was at 960, which makes sense. Good. It zooms out to there. And then down here someplace, and by the way, we'll probably end up moving that. It's a little too close. We can select that keyframe and copy it. Move my cursor down here a ways, near the end, someplace there, and paste it in there. And then we're going to go back again. So move our cursor to the end and go back again. So at this point, I'm going to have it zoom back out to the left. How am I going to do that? I'm just going to go grab this guy and zoom it back out again. Like that. Okay. And let's right now go ahead and move this down here a little bit. Like to balance it a little bit. Let's see what this does, okay? Here we go. Back to the beginning and watch my screen here.
What is your favorite animal and why?
Zooms in.
My favorite animal is a sloth.
And then it
because they
zooms
sleep
out.
like 12 hours
Okay,
a day.
so we did a motion by ourselves. Let's take these frames here and do a right click on them. Temporal interpolation, yes, and choose ease in. And then we're going to choose this one. I think we choose ease out. Does this make any difference? Let's see, shall we? Let's go back to the beginning. We'll go ahead and do it.
Favorite animal and why?
It slows a little
My favorite
bit
animal is a sloth
at the
because they
start
sleep
and
like
end
12
a little
hours
bit.
a day,
It didn't
and
do too
I
much,
also
but
do
easing
that.
in and out is something we could work on more. We could actually do more work with these and learn more about those, but that is enough for this. So we did easing in and out, set the keyframes, and so on. Good. So now, your last thing, if you really are glutton for punishment, you want to do some extra credit, do one of your own. The motion should be different from what I just did, but it should use keyframes. The way the text is presented and the colors or so on could be different. You could use an ellipse or something else, or some other shape or something, or at least some different configuration. Again, we're not trying to be wild or crazy. We're just trying to have a different view on how you're going to construct your lower third. So you want to do one more. If you do that, why don't you save the file again and call it extra credit when you do your export. So I know you've got one that's regular and one that has the extra credit attached. How are you going to do it? You want to just grab this last one with Natalie and duplicate it and move it down again, or Jess's and duplicate it and move it down again. You could do that. Just add one more person, and you could use a text that's appropriate to them, or Kirk, any of those. So do it again on one of those 1, 2, or 5, or choose one of the other transition ones and do it on that. Make your own. That's about it. I hope this is helpful and showed you some interesting new things you can do in Premiere.